Hello, my name is Rainer Hanekamp and this is Engineers with the yearly review of 2025. The main topics this year were first of all the signalization of the Angular framework via polishing the resource API, but also the signal forms, and the massive move towards AI. Let's start with the headline feature, signal forms. They were announced last year at Eng Poland 2024, and it took 1 year until they were released in Angular 21. Forms are really important for enterprise applications. Some might even say an enterprise application is just a collection of different forms. Signal forms succeed the reactive and the template-driven forms, and in a way they try to combine the advantages of both old systems but in a modern way. Template-driven forms write directly into the data object that we provide, the so-called model. With signal forms it's the same, but the data model has to be a signal. Validation works like in reactive forms, where we wrote those rules in TypeScript. But here signal forms go one step ahead, and there is actually nothing that you cannot do with the new validation syntax. The complexity with custom controls also disappears. We no longer have to implement a very clumsy interface like the control value accessor. Instead, there is an interface, but there is just one property, which is the value that we have to bind via the model function. And that's it. Signal forms are still experimental, but the Angular team already stated that they want to move forward quite soon. The resource already appeared in late 2024 in version 19, but in a minor 19.2, which was released this year, we got the third primitive, which is the HTTP resource. The resource bridges the gap whenever a value of a signal depends on an asynchronous task. Very often, that asynchronous task is an HTTP request, and that's why the HTTP resource is so important. HTTP resource uses the HTTP client under the hood. That means all the interceptors are still working. In Angular 20, the resource got a final overall. For example, it now throws an error if you're accessing its value and the status is in error. And the status field itself is now a union type instead of an enum type. Like signal forms, resources are still experimental, but I hope that this is going to change very soon. And of course, with AI, we saw a massive investment. The basics we received in Angular MCP server, which improves from release to release. The most important feature at the moment are its instructions, which tell the LLM to produce modern Angular code and not outdated. So we are getting signals, we are getting the new template control flow syntax standalone and more. But AI and Angular go much deeper. They are currently researching what it means for a framework to become AI ready. So they are currently designing APIs not just for us as users, but also for AI agents. And they have written a known tool, which is called the CodeGen Scorer, which can evaluate those results. Furthermore, we see that Gemini, that's Google's LLM, made big leaps this year. And if you are in a position of the Angular team, we are working inside of a company that lives and breathes AI, then of course all the context, all the environment, it's really valuable, and you also have access to a lot of resources. What else has happened? Zoneless became not just stable, but also the default in Angular 21. And if we look at the time span it took from developer preview to stable to default, then all of that happened within a major. Speaking of fast, Vitest skipped the developer preview and stable and jumped directly to default in Angular 21. We now finally have a top-tier testing framework and don't have to hide from the other frameworks anymore. And then came Angular Aria. It follows the trend that we want to have full control over our UI components, but still want to help in their behavior. And this is exactly what it does. It provides directives that define a certain behavior in terms of accessibility. Finally, we saw the deprecation of Angular animations. It's not necessary anymore to have a separate package because the browsers support all these features already natively. The minimalistic thing that stayed was animate enter and animate leave, where we can define the transitions. In terms of download statistics, the Angular renaissance hasn't materialized yet in a massive spikes, Numbers are still increasing, but they do so steadily. Generally, the perception of Angular is quite positive, but it just takes time. Enterprises, as the main Angular user, they move very slowly, and a lot of them want to wait until the transition to modern Angular reaches some kind of an end. This brings us to the outlook. What can we expect for 2026? I expect, but also hope, that signal forms and the resource API turn stable. Last year I predicted that Selectorless and the new authoring format will come. Didn't happen, so let's move that to next year. Selectorless means that we can refer to a component's class name directly in the template and therefore only have to import that particular component just one time. As for the authoring format, nobody knows. It could be signal components, it could be a switch from classes to functions or something else. We will see. Last but not least, Nginx now also exists as a Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese versions. I'm very happy that creators contacted me and joined the project. These are available as separate YouTube channels, and I really hope that next year we can add further languages. So it looks good for another year of Nginx, and also a huge thanks to you, especially if you share, if you like, if you comment or recommend Nginx to your colleagues. That just keeps it rolling. I wish you a healthy and successful new year. And as always, see you in the next episode. Goodbye.